Okay, everyone. So in the last video, we looked at how to basically, do the basics in terms of getting our visualizations into our article template once we had styled that. And of course, in classic fashion, I failed to look up the sort of responsive utilities. So if you recall in class several weeks ago, we looked at doing the visible versus the hidden, which again I find eternally complicated, and so it was a little bit trial and error. But in fact, I think we can actually get our visualization to behave as we want. What this means is that we might have multiple, two versions of our visualization, which we've discussed, throughout the course of the semester. Very often we need to make some adjustments when it comes to the mobile version or the small version of our visualization, because in terms of interactivity, in terms of the number of things, we might want a completely different look. And Bootstrap really helps us with this if we use it properly. So what I had done previously is I kind of left this this way, and as you see from here, I'm actually seeing both. And the reason why I'm seeing both is because I haven't put in the hiddens. And so what I want to say is, basically I want to have the small one that's hidden at medium and large, and then I want to have the other one be hidden as extra small and small, and hopefully if I compose these correctly I can get this right. So I've said, column MD12, I also want to say hidden, again I'm going to have to look at this, right? I'm going to say hidden small, so hidden small, hidden extra small. And on this one, in the reverse, I'm going to say hidden medium and hidden large. And again, you can do this however it makes the most sense to you. I just find that if I think about what's hidden, for whatever reason, I find that more straightforward. So let's give this another shot here. I'm going to reload the page and see what happens when I start resizing. So the first good sign is that I'm not seeing my quote-unquote small content, which is just that text that says sample content. And then the real test is if, as I resize, we now see it's not very, we see that the medium size visualization disappears and we get just the text. So in your examples, that's probably going to be, in fact, maybe a completely different visualization, right? And all you would have to do for that would be to essentially rename, create a second JavaScript file, or just rename your JavaScript file for the second version. Give this div an ID, right? So it wouldn't be chart_div. It would need to be a unique ID. So use chart_div2, right? And you load up that JavaScript, and then both of them will execute, and those charts will be ready and waiting for whichever version the user loads. So the other thing that we run into sometimes is dealing with iframes, and actually dealing with iframes isn't specifically more complicated. It works really well. It blends really well with this sort of like small versus small and extra small versus medium large, this idea of just showing and hiding content on the basis of the screen size. So for those of you who've been doing maths, I'm going to show an example with Google Fusion tables because I just happen to have one handy. But again, it's actually very straightforward, not specifically more complicated than working with the JavaScript. So here I am, I'm at the New York City Open Data Portal, and I have downloaded a data set of public recycling bin locations because you should always know where you can put your recyclables. And I've downloaded this as a CSV. It popped open in Excel just to give you a little look at it. Again, this is something you could do with Carto or with Fusion tables. I'm going to do this with Fusion tables just for diversity's sake, but I have my latitude and longitude, and that's pretty much all I need in order to locate these things. So I am in my, so just to kind of backtrack here a second, I'm basically just in my Google account, and this is something you actually have access to in your, that you have access to through your Columbia account, so you can do it there, or you can do it in another Google account. You may have to connect Fusion tables, or if you haven't done so before, so you would just go and connect more apps and search for Fusion tables, it would come up and you would connect it, and then you would have this option. And Fusion tables is just another spreadsheet program basically, except it has built-in mapping functions, which is why it was kind of a big deal when it debuted, because making interactive maps the way that we've been doing with Carto was actually not at all common at the time. So here I am, I put my data in here. So I can do sort of standard, it's very much like importing something into Excel. I do my spreadsheets, and it's going to process this for a minute. It's going to guess at the column names. And I really like this because this says this is a really good prompt for adding metadata. And so I can put in things that are helpful to me about, about this data set, right? So this goes to our documentation, and who should this be attributed to, et cetera, where can I find it? So it's the Department of Sanitation in this case, so I'm going to make sure that I put that in the attribution line. I can give it a link because they have given me a permalink here, although it's a little weird to get a hold of. Right, and then I can sort of leave this as it is, but I really like the prompt where it says, what would you like to remember about this table in a year? This is what we're always striving for. Anytime we do documentation, whether it's comments or just sort of writing out your process or commit messages, all the time it's the question is, what is the thing that I'm going to need to know later? Because right now, at any given moment you have, when you're working on this stuff actively, you have a lot of information in your mind, and that is going to go away because you're going to replace it with other things. But if you want to come back to it, it's handy to know where to find it, or it's handy to have it written down. That's what writing is for. So this is going to process this for me pretty quickly. It gives me a little progress here, and because it kind of knows what's going on, it right away is going to go, well, latitude and longitude. I sort of get what that is, right? So here's my recycling bin map, and I'm not going to worry too much about how I can customize this. I can customize this pretty nicely. I can change the feature styles by coming in here and saying, well, I want the marker icon to be, I don't know, purple instead of red, and then it'll all turn purple. I can also do some stuff to the info window here, so I can both just sort of typically add and remove information, but I can also go in and add sort of regular HTML here, so I can say of sanitation. And there's quite a lot else that can be done with this, but again, this is just sort of the very basics, right? So I'm going to get address the story of the park. So now the question is, what do I do with this? I want to get this onto my page. So in Fusion Tables Maps, when we do an export, first of all, we have to share it. We have to make it at least visible to the public. So I would say anyone with the link can see it. Okay, and then from here, I want to actually be able to see this on the rest of on the rest of the internet. And so to do that, I am going to say, okay, I'm done with this, and under the map thing, I'm going to say there's this option to publish, right? And so I'm going to say I want to publish this. And one of the options it's going to give me is this iframe thing. And so iframe width has to be predetermined at the outset. It's not unlike our Google Charts, although we haven't talked about it that much, where actually our chart width and height are set within the options when we start. And so 500 pixels sounds a little bit large. I'm going to go with, in the options here, I'm going to say, give me 400 and, yeah, maybe even 350 and 250. I want it to be a little more square. And so what I'm going to use in this case is paste HTML into the website. So I'm just going to select this and copy it, okay? And this is just the code sample. I can literally paste this straight into my my page here. So as an example, I wouldn't ever really want back-to-back visualizations, right? I always want to have some space between them. So I'm going to go ahead and create another div section. So I'm going to say class equals row, right? Just like we did before. And I need 12, so I'm going to take up the entire row with this. And in this case, I don't have to put an ID on it because I'm really just going to put all of that stuff straight into my HTML page. And again, if this is, so this is my medium example, again, to have my sort of alternate view that would show when it was small, I would need something else. This is just going to stay, which means it's not going to resize very well. So I will definitely want to add that alternate view. It might be just a smaller image, it might be more focused, might be a series of images that collapse well when I'm looking at it in the sort of mobile view. But from there, I can just come back to my page and we should see, again, I still have my chart, but here's my little map, okay? And so that's all I really need to do. And again, since I've left it in the small view, this size actually works pretty well. I would probably want to actually have it be larger in the main version. But that's all there is to it. So pretty much there are two ways to get our visualizations into a page. Now you can create an iframe of your own visualization if you want to have it a completely separate folder. It's not generally how you might want to do it. I mean, there's pros and cons to both that we'll discuss in class. I mean, the great thing about an iframe is that it lets us use third-party tools like CartoDB, like Google Fusion Tables, some other kinds of charting libraries that work that way. It also has to do with the way that it protects the site code from your own code. So you don't really have to have a whole lot of access in order to be able to put things, in fact, very little access to put something into an iframe. Whereas when you do it in a div this way, you need pretty direct access to the page. So those are things that may or may not come up when you're actually doing this at a news organization. But just to show you that either way, it's really pretty simple. I mean, as always, the key really is to be methodical, to have what you want to do and what you want to be seeing at different sizes of the page planned out ahead of time. And the code that's involved in actually inserting it is, again, not too complex. There's a little bit of blending to do, but you know, if you write the steps out and just follow them step by step and check periodically that things are going as planned, then you'll probably be fine. So hopefully this has been helpful. We will also obviously be going over all this in the lab on Wednesday, and we look forward to seeing you then.